Now, usually I don't do this, but go ahead on, break them off with a little previews of the remix. Now, I'm not trying to be rude, but hey, pretty girl, I'm feeling you. The way you
Okay.
do the things you
Student
do
Union Study
reminds me of
Hall,
my basic
episode
school.
4.
That's why I'm
It's the first day of March, so we're getting there, boys. It's about time for that dance. And most shocking news of last week had to be Gonzaga going down to BYU. 29-game win streak snapped. How do you guys think this is going to affect Gonzaga's seeding and their performance the rest of the year? We'll start with Austin.
I mean, I think that it'll honestly help them in the long run. They kind of needed to lose a game. It reminds me of Wichita State a couple years ago when the hype was, oh, they're undefeated. They're going to be the first team to enter the tournament undefeated since whenever. And it was just all that hype. I think getting the loss out of the way is good. I think they should still be a 1 seed, assuming they win out and they win the WCC tournament. Like, you look at every other good team, they have some bad losses. Kansas is going to be a 1 seed. They got beat by Indiana. North Carolina got beat by Georgia Tech. I don't know. It's just the double standard of, oh, you lost to BYU, therefore they're not good, and all this stuff. So I didn't really take too much away from it other than I think it's probably good for them. I still think Gonzaga's legit, very much Final Four contenders. I don't know. I don't think it's that as big of a deal as a lot of people are making it.
Luke?
Back in our first episode of this, I said that BYU could be a struggle for Gonzaga, so I'm not going to say I called it, but they certainly played up to what I thought they could do. But right now, I think that loss is going to hurt Gonzaga a lot. I don't think they're going to be a 1 seed if these 4 teams win out. Kansas, Villanova, UCLA, and Oregon. I think if they win out, when
UCLA and Oregon can't both win out. They're in the same conference tournament.
That's a good call. I'm sorry. I look like an idiot. But,
Noted.
those 3 teams will be in it for sure. I also had North Carolina as the 5 team. So either way, I don't think Gonzaga is going to make it. I don't think it's really fair because they certainly deserve to be there. They're going to have they're probably going to have 1 loss going into the NCAA tournament, and a 1-loss team should always have a number 1 seed in my book. I mean, run through your season. The season's long, and injuries happen all the time, and you just to stay that great for that long of a time, it's just very impressive, and I think they should be a number 1, but I don't think they will be.
Yep. To me, it doesn't really play into BYU being a good team or Gonzaga being a bad team. I just think Gonzaga, after a season of plowing through their Pepperdimes and Portlands, they got a little soft. And when you get soft and you're used to weak competition, sometimes you'll slip up. So I think they need to, show up in this conference tournament and prove that they have an edge over these teams and they're willing to compete with the best.
I will say, I think they got exposed a little bit because once Eric Mika was able to get Shemek Karnowski into foul trouble, that kind of exposed them. So I think, granted, it's way easier said than done. Obviously, if you go at the 310-pound, 7-foot guy in the middle and get him into foul trouble, so that's easier said than done. But it's obvious that when he's off the court, it's a pretty glaring flaw in their game if they go up against the top center.
They need that grizzly bear out there.
Do you think BYU or St. Mary's can win the conference tournament over Gonzaga?
St. Mary's, yes. BYU, no.
Yep, same. Right. I guess let's move on. Conference tournaments are coming up. Which conference tournament would you guys say you're most excited for? Anyone want to start with that?
Yeah, I'll take it. Obviously, I'm a Big Ten fan. I'm an Iowa fan, so I'm going to watch the Big Ten tournament. I love that tournament. It's always pretty competitive, and it's so level this year. I know people are talking about Purdue, Wisconsin, but there's every team but Rutgers, in my eyes, could make a deep run into the Big Ten tournament. But my favorite to watch is going to be the American Athletic Conference with UConn, SMU, Cincinnati. They have, what do I have here? They have 7 teams that are at or above 500, and usually that conference is pretty competitive anyway. It kind of reminds me of the old Big East tournament, and I always loved watching that, so I'll take the American.
Should be interesting. Austin?
Yeah, I'm a Big 12 fan, but that tournament doesn't really matter because I think pretty much everything there has been decided. I'm most excited for the ACC tournament for one reason, and that is Dennis Smith Jr. I want to see a repeat. I want to see NC State, who has already fired their coach, go on a miracle run, win the conference tournament, go to the NCAA tournament, somehow make the Sweet 16 or something, then put their school in a really awkward position because they already fired their coach. So that's the one thing out of conference tournament week that I would be most happy with is if somehow, some way, Dennis Smith was able to just lose his mind and NC State goes off. There's also a few other. I would say the ACC tournament's probably the most wide open. I don't even know who would be the favorite right now because you got Duke, you got North Carolina, Louisville's good, Virginia's good. So I could see 5 or 6 teams winning it, but there are a couple good angles in there. So I'm going to say ACC.
Yeah, I can't argue with those two. Stir the pot a little. I'm going to go with the SEC conference, which I've said it time and time again. I feel they're an overlooked conference. And I'm excited to see how Kentucky and Florida handle all these pursuing teams because, like we saw the other day, a team like Vanderbilt can come out and, give Kentucky a run for their money. So it's just always a competitive tournament. You never know what's going to happen. And I feel like Florida and Kentucky are more co-favorites than there is a single favorite. And then there's always teams like South Carolina and Arkansas that are definitely going to sneak in there and cause some trouble. And they're also potentially fighting for seeding. So a lot of important stuff going on in that conference tournament. All right, well, continuing with conference tournament talk, what team in their conference tournament do you think has the most at stake for them in tournament season? Austin?
I'm going to go with my favorite coach in college basketball, Tom Crean and the Indiana Hoosiers. They've had a lackluster year, to say the least. They've been a pile of hot garbage for most of the year. They got beat by Purdue last night. I think at this point they're not in the tournament. And so not only are they fighting for their tournament lives, I think they have to win at least 2 games in the Big Ten tournament to get in the conversation. But also, Tom Crean's coaching for his job, and desperate times call for desperate measures. I can't wait to see what that looks like for Tom Crean. He's probably going to make a lot of expressive faces. He's going to yell. He's going to kiss his son on the mouth. We're going to get the full Tom Crean experience in the Big Ten tournament. So I would say Indiana's got the most at stake.
I can see that. Luke?
I'm gonna go with the Duke Blue Devils that have the most at stake. I don't think if they finish below a 4 seed, I think they're getting knocked out in the first round. They need that security of playing a very low team in the first round, a 3-2 seed, probably a 2 seed's out, but I'd say a 3 seed still within reach if they can win their conference tournament. I think Duke has a lot to play for in their conference tournament.
Luke kind of took words out of my mouth with that one. Definitely think Duke has a lot at stake here, especially after this season, all the criticism and scrutiny they've been under. But to change it up a little bit, I'll go with another team who's been under a lot of scrutiny, Gonzaga, who, obviously they're in, but they're seeding, like if they're, to lay an egg early in this tournament, their seeding could be heavily affected, and as well as their confidence going into this tournament. So I think Gonzaga is another team to obviously monitor throughout their conference tournament. But speaking of Duke, that's a good segue into our favorite topic. Is Duke back? Rough week for the Blue Devils, and then they capped it off with a win against FSU. So what are you guys thinking? We'll start with Luke because he's smiling.
Well, I've been against Duke the whole time. I almost switched last week, but thankfully they've lost 2 of 3, and they were both unranked teams. Granted, Miami, they're not a bad team. They're in the tournament probably, but their Florida State win last night or 2 nights ago, I think it was, that Florida State is one of the iffiest teams in the nation. They started so hot and then they cooled off, and then they win a couple games here and there. I don't know what to think on them. I certainly wouldn't pick them to make the Final Four at all. But that UNC game, their final game of the year, it'll be a big one rolling into conference tournament play. If they get that win and they continue momentum through the conference tournament, they'll be primed and ready for March and maybe prove me wrong. But some of the problems with Duke right now is Grayson Allen's hurt, and they're not very deep. Their last against Florida State, they only played 7 people, and when you're only going to run 7 people in the ACC, which is a pretty athletic conference, I mean, it's hard to do. But
I'm gonna let you guys in on a little
Absolutely.
secret here. Grayson Allen 100% is not injured. That dude is fine. This is one of the reasons why Mike Krzyzewski is one of the greatest coaches of all time. So he looks at his team, right? They had their ups and downs this year, kind of on a rough patch while he was out. And then he comes back. They're on, a 7-8 game win streak. And then they lose to Syracuse. And then he's thinking, look, if we go on the road and we go all out and we lose to Miami, this isn't good. We're going to be in a real tailspin before the tournament starts. And so he then want his team to get too discouraged if we lose. So basically give themselves a caveat. He says, Grayson, here's the deal. You're just going to sit out this game. We're going to fake like you have an ankle injury or whatever. You'll be back for the ACC tournament. You'll be back for the NCAA tournament. But basically after that game now, Kay has an excuse of, oh, well, we can't get too down on ourselves for that game because Grayson didn't play. So it's kind of like if you ever play your brother one-on-one in something and they beat you and you're just like, well, I wasn't really trying, so it doesn't count. So that's essentially what Coach K did, which is a big-time coaching move. I endorse it 100%. But Grayson Allen's not hurt. Duke is still back. Lock it in. They're going to be fine in the tournament.
I'm gonna withhold judgment this week because I need to see Duke play. I've been a Duke guy all season, and then John Gillen buzzer beater. I said they were dead. The Florida State and the Miami game was probably one of the most boring games I've ever watched. Which is not the Duke I like to see. I like excitement. I like controversy.
you like tripping.
Yeah, I love tripping. And then FSU win, gotta like it. But to me, it's going to be their final regular season game of the season against UNC. And then obviously how they perform in the conference tournament before I can really say Duke's back. But yeah, that's what we got for Duke being back this week. So moving on, we've got
To clarify on that, Luke, you're still saying no, they're not back.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm
And-
saying yes. William, are you in?
I'm withholding judgment.
That is bullshit.
That's not fun. It's not what we're about here.
Then I guess they're not back yet. They're not
Yeah!
back yet. They can prove
Yeah!
it.
I'll stand on this island.
You made me choose. You made me choose.
Yes.
Alrighty, but let's move on to something I'm a little better at choosing. Our locks of the week. I'm 3-0 if you're keeping score at home. How are you boys doing?
I'm sitting at 1-2 right now, coming off a big cover by Cincinnati last week. Barely hanging on.
I'm 2-1. I picked Gonzaga again last week. They were favored by, I think, 23, and they ended up beating San Diego by about 60. So they did well for themselves.
Killed it. I was on South Dakota, my go-to team. And this week I am pulling away from my system of picking obscure games no one's going to watch, and I'm going with Utah, California. I'm taking Utah minus 2.5 against California. Logic behind this is that Utah's 18-10 against the spread this season, which you guys have heard me throw out and at the spread stat every week. And that's kind of what I put my bank in. And they're also 13-4 at home, so expecting home crowd to help win me some money. Austin, what do you got for this week?
I want to go ahead and pick up the torch of picking obscure games that you're probably not going to watch.
Yeah.
I got North Florida plus 10 against Lipscomb. It's the second round of the Atlantic Sun tournament. First of all, North Florida's 2-0 this year against Lipscomb, and they've won both games by like 6 and 10. So I was shocked that they were underdogs, especially the fact that they were this many points. And so they won at Lipscomb earlier in the year. This game is at Lipscomb, but best player in the country that you've never heard of is Dallas Moore from North Florida. He was ASUN Player of the Year last year. Florida with the draft decided to come back. He's been tearing it up this year. I think he had 37 the other night. If they lose this game, it's his last college game. He's not going out without a fight. I think North Florida is going to win straight up, but definitely cover by 10. So I'm feeling good about this week.
Luke?
Well, I'm from Holy Cross, Iowa, which is a very small town, 380 people, and I didn't like any of the picks this week or any of the spreads for this Thursday, so I'm taking Holy Cross +2 at Navy. No logic behind it aside from it's
Brian
just my
Carmody.
home.
The 1-3-1 zone's going to get him.
I'm really praying, so I really need this win for my hometown, and that's basically the only reason I'm taking that one.
Well, you guys heard the difference in logic between a 1-2 pick here and a 3-0 pick. We'll see how this pans out for all of us next week. But thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
You're